morning and good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us. Very excited to be moderating this panel today. So this title of this panel is fantastic. The Rock, Scissors, AI. So how to win the game in AI adoption. With me today, I have some fantastic industry luminaries. I've got people covering pharma, medtech, digital health, and the thread that excites us all, of course, artificial intelligence. So let me introduce my panelists, and then let's going with some tricky questions for them. So we'll start with Simon Rost. Simon is joining us as the Marketing Director of GEhealthcare for GEhealthcare's Digital Health and AI portfolio. Welcome, Simon.
Nice to be here. Thanks a bunch.
Excellent. We've got Alexey Cherchago, who's joining us from Sandoz, he's the Head of Sales Excellence in Europe. Welcome, Alexey.
Hello, everyone. Hi, guys.
We've got Julien Pahud, who is from Lilly, elililly, and he's the International Marketing Analytics and Digital Health Leader. Welcome, Julien.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
And then just quickly on myself, I'm David Logue. I'm the SVP and GM for Life Sciences in Tact.ai, a little small startup that's we presented on Tuesday, if you got a chance to see us. And we're taking the pharma world by storm. But enough about me. Let's talk to the panelists about what they know and what they're going to share with us. So let's get going. So you know what, I'm going to start with you, Julien, as you're top left in my screen. What role does AI play in the digital transformation process for you?
Yeah, thank you. It's a very interesting one and a very vast question to get started, because I think that AI has an interesting role, and it's a multi-sided role. Because on some parts, it's a bit the shiny tip of the iceberg of digital transformation, the one that everyone sees, the one that everyone aspires to, which is great, because that can, make a goal, drive the whole work, the whole industrious work behind digital transformation. So on one hand, it can get the work started, but also it can also create a lot of false assumptions, a lot of buzzwords, a lot of expectations for shortcuts, etc. So this is something that's very interesting to balance, as something to aspire to, but it's not an end per se, because ultimately it's more about what can AI do for your patients rather than are we going to do AI and when.
I absolutely love that answer. Thank you very much. Simon, I'm coming to you next, as you're just in my eye line. What do you think?
I mean, look, Julien made a good point here. I recently read an article in Forbes that said basically AI is to digital transformation the same that electricity has been to the second industrial revolution. And I believe that there's a 2 point in that, because it's a very powerful technology as such. What I have to say is, at least when I talk to customers and to teams as well, what I feel is that digital transformation is sometimes defined as the end goal, what it should not be, right? It should actually be the means to an end. Julien said the same. And AI can clearly be a driver here. Why? Because in our sector, I believe that everything you want to do with digital transformation falls into 4 buckets. You either want to increase the quality of healthcare. You want to basically be more efficient, right? A third big point is you want to contain costs somewhere. And the last one would be you want to grant access to healthcare. And that's at the end all goes with data, and AI is especially good in addressing this and getting this efficiency. So for me, this, let's say, comparison with AI and electricity is quite a good one, because it's likely the most powerful technology or innovation or tool we have at this point in time in our sector.
I do like that analogy very much. Thanks for sharing that. And then maybe just wrapping up with this topic, Alexey, what are your thoughts from your perspective?
Look, David, just to build on what we're talking about, right? AI is one of the main enablers of digital transformation in pharma. We know this, right? And it helps us to be a bit more innovative, flexible, and adaptive to evolving customer needs. And basically, AI and together with machine learning techniques, it's some tools. It's enable better usage of the data which we are collecting, right? And efficient usage of this data brings positive impact on our services and customer satisfaction. Just 2 examples, very simple examples, right? What we are talking about, it is called customer 360 view, right? what we can observe now in pharma is evolving HCP expectations on touch point with us, with pharma companies. Physicians no longer demand the same, and that means clear understanding of customer needs and preferences is getting crucial. To power more relevant and personalized experience, we should have a proper support from analytics and insight generation tools, where AI-based engines already demonstrated solid results at scale, right? Or another one is dynamic analytics or recommendations generated in real time. We observe now a transition from process-driven selling to the operation in the environment with a lot of exponential disruption. So here AI help process thousands of data points to gather insights, identify trends, and provide recommendations in real time. With these insights, medical representatives can create highly personalized experience for their customers.
Excellent. And just maybe if I can just double click on that point you just made around customers and customer expectations. Alexey, just sticking with you for a second, what expectations do you have, or do you think your customers have of you when it comes to AI?
A good one. Look, first of all, I believe that we have to demystify AI, right? And clearly define where AI-based solutions are proven and robust and where we are experimenting. There are a lot of areas where we have good solutions, and there are a lot of areas where we are still learning, right? It's important to move from black box philosophy to a dialogue between data scientists working in pharmaceutical companies and business colleagues around how we should put rationalization of automatically generated insights and recommendations. Together with quite significant progress of AI application in predictive modeling, such as forecasting, I would love to see more examples of descriptive and prescriptive cases, especially at the level of customer-facing colleagues, medical representatives. There is a split between transactional and non-transactional activities while engagement with the customers, and significant change in this split, right? In the past, sampling or product messages cover maybe more than 70% of regular rep activities. What we have now is a measured shift to patient-related topics and specific requests relevant to individual HCPs. That implies high level of autonomy for sales representatives, an increasing level of complexity while moving from face-to-face to hybrid engagement. I believe that here dynamic analytics and real-time recommendations might bring a lot of value, and moreover, unparalleled customer experience has positive impact on customer satisfaction. That is, in fact, one of our key objectives. These are a couple of points from my side.
Really, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And then maybe on the marketing, just carrying forward with that marketing aspect, Julien, maybe could you share some of your thoughts on the expectations that you're seeing that maybe are increasing year on year?
Yes, so I think there are two parts. The first one, definitely, and I don't think that our customers have expectations on AI. They have just expectations on our service. Just to use Simon's point, I don't have any expectation on electricity. I have expectations on things to work and do their job. So I think that's one point. One thing that has changed, and we all know, is that basically since the beginning of the pandemic, the way that we need to interact with our customers has been accelerated. So we need to find new ways, and we can rely less on the old personal relationship to understand what our customers want. And this is definitely something where AI could play a very important role to palliate for that lack. So that would be one point, and I can only concur with all the points that Alexey mentioned about how to build that, and that's a nicely tie with the omnichannel discussion that was just before us. But also on the commercial end, going back and elaborating on what we've seen in COVID, there is also some great opportunities for AI when we've seen that we needed to come up with medical solutions to our patients in months for things that were taking years. We have scarcity of product that is being product, just in time, etc. So here, we cannot afford to have months to launch something, to plan carefully, and being able to have, a kind of live adjustment of where the demand is. How do we allocate our product that is being produced live, etc. That's also a very exciting area where AI could play a huge role and a crucial role for for society in itself. So I find it also as a very interesting and appealing area to pursue.
Yeah, no, I like that very much. I couldn't agree more with you on the electricity point. I mean, AI and the analogy of electricity is a good one. Having said that, when you get into a Tesla taxi at Amsterdam Airport, you're absolutely expecting the electricity to work. So that level is fine. But when the taxi driver switches on self-driving and you're relying on AI to work, you really hope you have an expectation that AI is going to do something special and not kill you. So that's a good one. Okay, Simon, I'd love your perspectives. Maybe you bring maybe a slightly different dynamic here. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I mean, if you ask what our customers at the end have as expectations towards AI, I would echo Julien here. Actually, they don't want to know that it's there, likely, right? They want, especially in healthcare, as little disruption to their workflow as possible. That's what I hear, at least when I talk to customers. I have to say, something's changed in the conversation. So we go away from the perception that an algorithm is taking your job. This was a fear, especially in the healthcare professional world, towards I somehow have to understand, let's say, this kind of technology and how it could help my job, right? I call this like the natural curiosity towards AI. If you ask where adoption is right now, I would say it's not where it should be, not on par with the urgency and the investment patterns that we see. This technology can do a lot, but it's not applied yet how it should be. Let me take the example of clinical AI. So basically artificial intelligence that help a healthcare professional to take better decisions and to increase clinical confidence. Right now, there are many examples. Let's stick with the radiologist again. You use today artificial intelligence to do something called triage, a concept coming from the civil war in France, basically to say, I don't know, Alexey is not as severe ill as Simon, so he needs treatment earlier. AI can already do this perfectly, especially important in times of COVID. A second big point is decision support. It can mine data and can mine diagnosis and tell you with this kind of, let's say, conditions, this would be the best step you could take as the next one, right? So this also is something very common already and possible in the world in the clinical world. Other things what AI can do very well is it can basically take redundant tasks, take over this for a radiologist or for a clinician. Reporting is the best example here, structured reporting, which is time consuming, but is manual. If you automate this could help, right? So there are many examples of where AI can help healthcare professionals. The point is, as soon as you add any kind of additional workload towards the healthcare professionals, they will reject the kind of artificial intelligence. So I think the best way is to integrate it seamlessly into the workflow, and it is there as support, but not that you can feel or see it. That's what I believe and what I hear, what customers expect. What I have to say, where we stand today, I believe a lot more is possible, and that's what we have to work on. And I truly believe that actually in the near future, patients will request that artificial intelligence is part of the diagnosis because it just gives this kind of quality increase and this kind of, let's say, assurance that the decision is the right one.
Yeah, I think those are very good points, well made. But what it really kind of brings up, maybe the next thought that we should perhaps cover for the audience is, what do we think is needed to make that incremental leap for AI and pharma, or indeed healthcare? Simon, let's stick with you. Maybe as you were in a flow there. So what's needed to make that leap?
There's quite still a gap to cover, as I mentioned before. Maybe it's first, let's say, important to see what's hindering us, right? And there are many points that today makes a kind of, let's say, adoption, as the title of this panel says, necessary. So regulations is, at least in our world, a big one, right? A very regulated and also very conservative sector. Then a consensus of basically how you do the value transfer. So how do you charge for AI, for example, in a hospital space, and how are hospitals paying for it? There's no consensus around this yet. Interoperability is let's say, the evergreen topic, which we still didn't solve, fragmentation of data, and then I would say a general resistance to change. So these things are, I think, all over when you adopt new technologies, but in healthcare, it's especially important, and it's maybe a higher burden, right? what do you have to do? What I mentioned, you have to integrate this kind of technology seamlessly into the workflow. In best case, the healthcare professional is not even feeling it, right? I think it's important to get all stakeholders on one table very early on in the definition to basically address user experience, because usability is a big one in any kind of technology tool. I believe that you should also look into evidence generation. I mean, our industry, healthcare professionals, doctors, clinicians, physicians, they live on publications. So we have to double down on showing literally scientifically that there's a proof either clinically or operationally in the use of these tools. And then I would say a big one is also leveraging the entire ecosystem, because it is at the end a marathon, and you have to take any kind of resource you can. These are the things that I would put first here as conditions.
Yeah. No, I think they're excellent points. Alexey, just coming over to the kind of pharma perspective, perhaps that you've seen in your day-to-day working life, you know, what else do you see, or do you see any other points that maybe we could add on for the audience on this incremental leap point?
Yes, I would focus on two main things. First of all, I believe that the starting point for bringing AI at scale is around data and systems. All data needed to be centralized on one platform and well segmented to be used efficiently. It is not the case for us, and for many pharmaceutical companies, it's still quite a long journey. It is critical to have homogeneously integrated information and technology. For example, essential record for customer data, or transparency around impact of different communication channels in use. We can hardly build IT infrastructure from scratch. We have a lot of legacy systems, and therefore legacy and new systems should connect the dots between different customer channels, tools, campaigns. And this is pretty sophisticated task. It's not so easy, especially when we are doing this at scale. This is one big area. The second one, I would call it, it is around, it is equally important from my perspective. It's about proper cultural support and organizational design that ensures all this cross-functional collaboration while planning and executing, customer campaigns and running artificial intelligence projects. As all other technologies, AI requires specific support. We need data scientists, people who are experts who know how to handle all these algorithms. And here it's quite interesting because both parts, business colleagues and data scientists, they should be seamlessly integrated in the regular conventional business operation. And what is even more important, they should use common language to ensure that one part, data scientists appropriately address business issues, and the other way around, there is a proper formulation of business problems which is supposed to be covered by artificial intelligence solutions, algorithms, and so on. These are two areas, and I think that both 2 points are equally important for me.
I like that. Thank you for sharing that. And Julien, so if I was to challenge you to come up with yet one more thing, or two things even, what would you recommend from your experience?
Oh, I will take the challenge. And actually, just to rebound on Alexey answered almost how I would have answered your question, the very question which was about incremental. But what I would challenge back is, I'm not sure if incremental would actually cut it. Especially, I'm a data guy. And yes, indeed, our data is fragmented. The data is all over the place. Even when we dream about electronic health record are not meant and built for artificial intelligence, for digital health. They are built for invoicing. So if we stay in the current paradigm, I'm not sure we will get there, and we will just have a big industry frustration. And coming back to the leadership point, people will start pulling the plugs. As we've seen big tech was having, cartoon eyes on pharma, and they fled as quickly as they arrived. So what I would say, and that's my quantum leap on the data world, that I would say is that instead of trying to centralize all the data, which I would argue will not work, we should go for a very different paradigm. and we should go for a collaborative mindset. So instead of every company, every player in pharma working with a lot of greed, getting the data in their own databases, centralizing everything, what about going for distributed, decentralized model? What about collaborating? I heard recently a wise man saying that collaboration is the new competition. I think this is very true. So if we work to create decentralized data ecosystem, if we finally, by doing that, and again, I'm a huge fan of and have huge hope about blockchain and distributed ledgers technologies. Here, that would allow, first of all, for the patient to be the true owners of the data. Because when we centralize, the data become ours. Is it very ethical? I would argue that not very much. So here, the patient is the owner of their data, which means that we will get more data. Up to date, I think the latest numbers I've seen are 21% of patients are consenting to share data. What would we build as AI on top of a very specific behavioral segment that has only that only represent 21% of the ecosystem? So if we can give them the power back, the control back to the data, and find new ways to design interoperability, I fully agree with those points. But ultimately, going distributed, that might be actually the quantum leap that our industry needs for that.
I like it. You've taken my incremental and you've upped me. That's very good.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to up you. We're going to change gear. This isn't scripted, so the gentlemen are going to look at me like, what are you doing? But what we're going to do is we're going to do a rapid fire round of, because Simon brought up the word adoption, and of course it's in the title for this session, for this panel. So what is the one piece of advice that you would give our audience on how do you drive adoption? Go, Alexey, let's start with you. One piece of advice, something really crisp.
Look. I would say first of all, to get your own experience, it's really important to try. And I'm positively surprised, for example, by already available results of AI-based data generalization. Yeah, we are talking about cross-channel interactions, personalization, customer segmentation should be extended with a couple of additional elements. Like channel preferences, content preferences. We have limited information about digital affinity and content preference of physicians, of our customers. And here, data generalization helps a lot, to fill missing data points while shaping customer engagement plans, while helping us being relevant for our customers, putting together customer journeys with our physicians. This is the area where we have in Sandoz quite good solid results, and I'm pretty comfortable with this element. Another one, I'm also quite positive around the application to generate dynamic recommendations for our medical representatives. Here we are in the very beginning of the journey, and I don't have solid insights at scale, but I hope to see very good positive results already next year for us.
Excellent. I like the way you snuck in too, but that's good. Julien, we're going to come to you. So what's your key to adoption that you think the audience should pick up from this?
I would say the first one, look at yourself in the mirror and ask, why do you want to run an AI project? Mm-hmm. Then if you can look at yourself and you say, okay, we are doing that for the right reason, it's going to help the patient, then start small. Look at lighthouse, small experiments. Don't try to change your whole company in one go. It will just generate failure and frustration. So get those experience, find the right place, the right country, the right business, the right brand, in order to ensure that you get those fast learnings and successes, and then replicate and scale them up.
I love it. Thank you. And Simon, you brought up the adoption word, so I'm hoping you're going to have something for us from all of your experiences as well.
David, you said I've got just one, right? Because I'm in between two things here, and
you can have one and a half.
Whatever. Look, you said if we have to focus, I have to also start with a focus. So I would double down on user experience, right? That's where I believe, literally, at least for healthcare professionals, which are our main target, and for what I do in my day-to-day. I mentioned this, I think, 3 times already, and I'm happy to mention it a fourth time. You should not actually experience that AI is within this process, right? It should be a companion behind the scenes that helps you and augments your kind of working, right? And that's what I believe is maybe the biggest thing we have to get right. especially because normally in medtech companies, we are not used to that, correct? I mean, the Apples of the world and all B2C companies, they do this perfectly. We have, there's still, let's say, a little bit of learning to do, but that's likely the most important point. And you said a half, I have as well. The a half point would be to get everybody on the table early on. And this doesn't just mean the kind of specialty, right? If I work in radiology, it should not just be the radiologist. It should also be the customers and stakeholders he or she works with. The earlier you get them on the table to agree how a process could look like, the better it is. These are the two things, or the 1.5 thing I would mention here.
Fabulous. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. So we're just coming up to maybe 5 minutes left. So just switching gears again, one more time into the final push for this fascinating panel. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you very much to Eli Lilly and to Novartis. Of course, I announced this week that you have both invested in our company. So thank you very much. Now, I'm not going to influence you by asking my next question, but what is the greatest AI project that you've worked on or that you've been involved in? Let's start with you, Alexey. What's the greatest?
You know, I mentioned a couple of things around data generalization, right, where we have quite solid results, and I would say our final objective actually to bring value to our customers, to physicians and our patients, right. Therefore, if we are relevant, if we are able to bring information which is expected to us, service at the level of expectations for our customers, it's really amazing. There are a lot of, so this is it's working, and I would recommend actually to go this way. I think it's pretty solid. I don't want to mention forecasting things because I think in commercial this is quite solid, and I would expect in different areas we have different projects where all these AI technologies, are working pretty well. And BA, right? Next best action. This is where I would expect quite a lot of interesting insights. And Simon mentioned this adoption, right? For me, as a customer-facing person, as a medical representative, being comfortable with the AI tools, providing recommendations around my performance, giving some directions when I'm talking to my customers, I should trust this. Therefore, I think quite a lot of change management activities should be behind explaining and illustrating that exactly like in the case with physicians, what Simon mentioned, AI, it's incremental help, additional enabler. It is not instead of us. It is together with, it can help to streamline, simplify our life and be more relevant. This is quite critical. This is important. Let's see, there are, I've heard about some examples in the industry using successfully AI tools and recommendations and real-time recommendations while engaging with the customers. I think that this is something we are working on in Sandoz, and let's see what will be outcomes of this exercise.
Excellent answer. Thank you, Alexey, for sharing that. Julien, coming to you then. So, greatest project that you've been involved with or that you have admired from a distance?
So I would say not in the industry, but admired from the distance was really looking at the AlphaGo story, because this was, it shows the human side of AI, and ultimately we are all human beings, and there are human beings behind the AI, coding it, etc. And I find it as a very enlightening one. Then been working on, I think I need to walk the talk when I say I was preaching about the quantum leap, about data. So actually we are not there to use this data for AI, but having had the privilege to start a project, even at the tiniest level, but to use blockchain to secure and to transfer patient data, basically creating those precedents, creating this future potentially collaborative ecosystem. I think that's something I'm extremely proud of and excited to see where it takes us. And if you allow me 1 second of shameless self-promotion, by the way, for those interested in hearing more about it, stay tuned. I'll be back in a couple of minutes with a quick rundown on this very story. But that would be really what I'm
Stay tuned, listeners, for the next session for that one. Excellent. And then Simon, just the last minute before we hand back over to Julien for his session. Greatest project, greatest AI initiative.
I will keep myself very short because I want to listen to Julien afterwards as well. So Look, it's something we launched early this year, which is called the Edison Accelerator. It is a startup collaboration and customer collaboration program where we develop together with our customers and with startups and with industry partners like Intel and Amazon on eye level at the end algorithms in 3 big fields. One is pixel AI, so everything around radiology, what we know how to do, right? And there we have quite some expertise. The second one is around operational improvements, no-show detection and these kind of things. And the last one is the one that excites me most, which I would call consumer AI on purpose, not patient AI, which at the end should ease the process of patients within the hospital and the healthcare system. And that's something where I take a lot of energy from, because it's for sure new to a big ship like GE, and also for a corporate guy like me, it's something very new. And it's something where I really believe as we work on eye level, we can get very far with. And
excellent.
I think I'm right on time, Julien.
You are right on time. Gentlemen, thank you very much for all your thoughts and your contributions to today's panel. I think we've really answered the question of rock, scissors, AI, and I think we all agree it's not scissors, it's not rock, it's definitely AI. Thanks very much, gents.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure.
Bye-bye.